morning. I'm Sherry.
And I'm Connie. We are so pleased to have you here with us tonight to celebrate the critical work of the ACLU of Southern California, in the courts, with our legislature, and in our communities.
And we are here to honor some extraordinary, courageous individuals who are raising their voices, taking action against injustices, and standing for essential values that define America: compassion, inclusion, equality, justice, and integrity.
An event like this could never happen without the work of many people behind the scenes. Thank you to our dinner committee and our committee co-chairs, Nichelle Carr and Stacey Horth Newberg. Thank you also to all of the staff behind the Bill of Rights dinner, with a special thanks to Christian Labano and Vicky Fox.
We have the finest staff anywhere. I ask them to stand so we can show our appreciation for the vital work they do. Please stand, staff. And we are so appreciative for all of you joining us here this evening and your immense generosity. Without your support, we are not able to do the work.
Thank you so much for coming.
We know you will have a meaningful and wonderful evening. Enjoy.
Singing Diane Warren's I'm Standing With You from the feature film Breakthrough, please welcome Golden Globe and Emmy-nominated actress and singer Chrissy Metz.
Good evening. Hi. Hi. I love you. I don't know who said that, but I love you. Oh, I love you too. Love you. Oh, thank you. Check is in the mail. Thank you. I was like, say it now. She hit the cue, thank you. When you're hurting, I want you to know that you'll never have to hurt alone. And when your faith is running low, I'll never lose faith in you. When the nights surround you and you think that no one cares about you, I will go and throw my arms around you. I'll be there through whatever you go through. I'm standing with you, and wherever you go to, I'll stand beside you. And when you think that all the odds are all against you, and you just feel like giving up, well, I won't let you. Through whatever you go through, I'm standing with you. I'm standing with you. We all got times when we can't be strong, when it feels like all hope is gone. But I'm right here to lean on. I'll always be strong for you. And when you're feeling broken, and it seems like every door go through. I'll stand beside you. And when all the odds are all against you, and you just feel like giving up, well, I won't let you. Do whatever you go through. I'm standing with you. I'm standing with you. Nothing you can do can move me. You can try, but you can't lose. You can't lose. Through whatever you go through, I'm standing with you. Yeah. And wherever you go through, I'll stand beside you. And when all the odds are all against you, and you just feel like giving up, well, I won't let you. Do whatever you go through. I'm standing with you. I'm standing. I'm standing with you. I'm standing. I'm standing with you. I'm standing. I'm standing. I'm standing. I'm standing with you. I'm standing. I'm standing with you. Oh, I'm standing. I'm standing with you. I'm standing with you. I'm standing with you. I'm standing. I'm standing with you. Thank you all so much. Have a great night. Thank you.
Wow, talk about a hard act to follow. But I have some very exciting news and information to talk with you about. Our work with courageous assembly members and senators who share our values for a more equitable and just California. Tonight, we recognize our 2019 legislative champions who put themselves on the line to author ACLU of California legislation. These lawmakers often faced uphill battles against powerful special interests and lobbies, but they stayed the course. Assemblymember Ash Kalra sponsored and passed a bill to give defense attorneys more access to police misconduct records. That's right. It makes it far more difficult for police departments to hide that critical information. We are so pleased to have Assemblymember Ash Kalra here with us tonight. Please join me in thanking him. The landmark California Act to Save Lives by Assemblymember Dr. Shirley Weber establishes one of the strongest police use of force laws in this country. It ensures that officers use deadly force only when absolutely necessary. It's a critical change at a time of too many officer-involved killings of our Black and brown brothers and sisters. That's right. And the College Student Right to Access Act, carried by Senator Connie Leyva, makes California the first state in the country to make medication abortion available at all public university campuses. That's right. We are truly making healthcare access and reproductive justice real in California. And these are just a few examples. Other ACLU of California-sponsored bills include gender equity, LGBTQ rights, voting rights, consumer privacy, surveillance, and the decriminalization of poverty. We greatly thank the legislators who worked with us this year and look forward to their continuing partnership. To learn more about our 2019 legislative champions, please visit the inserts on your table. Thank you so much.
Please welcome the Executive Director of the ACLU of Southern California, Hector Villagra.
In early 2015, in the quaint period I call the before time, before he who must not be named was elected, I had a crisis of faith. At a retreat with immigrants' rights advocates, I got the devastating news that my mom had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. I felt a wave of emotions and thoughts, but there was one that hit me particularly hard. The idea that once again, at a moment when my family needed to be together, I was not there, and I was not there because of work. Over the years, I've missed birthday celebrations, arrived late to Thanksgiving and Mother's Day, or been there in body but not mind, preoccupied because of a brief or bill or something I was working on. So my instant impulse was to leave the retreat and be with my family. But after I processed the shock, I realized why I was at this retreat and why I was a civil rights advocate. It was because of my mom. Growing up, I often saw her on a weeknight or a Saturday afternoon, gathered at the kitchen table with a family member or friend, papers strewn out in front of them. Because my mom was fluent in English, she was a very valuable resource. When a letter came from the IRS or a school or an insurance company, people came to her for help. My mom would read everything, ask questions, explain what to say, what information to gather, and if they didn't feel comfortable, she'd take time off from work and go with them to resolve the issue. I didn't realize it until that retreat, but my mom was the first advocate I ever saw. And I chose to be an attorney to be just like her and use my knowledge to help people. There were many painful and difficult days in the next year and a half with her chemo, surgery, and decline until she ultimately passed in late October 2016. But there was one day that I treasure. Taking her to Cedars-Sinai, I told her just how much I loved her, how I modeled myself on her, and how proud I was to be her son. Though she was nauseous and exhausted, she gave me a wide, toothy smile, one I hadn't seen in a long time, and she said, "I know." I laughed so hard. We both loved Star Wars. She adored Harrison Ford, and she had just nailed his most famous line. On election night 2016, when I put my then 9-year-old daughter Sophia to bed, she was crying, upset, worried about what the new president would do. I had completely underestimated how much she had been paying attention to the campaign and its absolutely hateful rhetoric. But instinctively, I said, "Don't worry. This is why I work for the ACLU." I could say that. I could say that despite the worry that I too felt, because I knew in my bones that the ACLU stood ready and defiant. After the election, the ACLU took out full-page ads in the New York and LA Times and vowed that if the president followed through on his campaign promises, if he tried to turn his racism, xenophobia, misogyny, and hateful LGBT bias into policy, we would fight back. Because that's why the ACLU exists, to uphold the idea that every human being is born equal in dignity and rights. So, 3 years, 11,000 tweets, and endless outrages later, where are we? Well, let's just say we kept our promise. The ACLU has sued the president more than 240 times. We blocked the president's first 2 Muslim bans. The Supreme Court upheld his narrower 3rd ban, but we continue to fight its implementation in the courts. We prevented the president from terminating the protected legal status of more than 400,000 people from what he called shithole countries. We forced the president to stop separating immigrant children from their parents. Then we helped reunite more than 2,000 families, and we won't rest until we've reunited them all. And now we're suing to get them the treatment that they need for the trauma that they suffered. We blocked the president's rule that would have allowed all employers, on the basis of their personal, religious, or moral objections, to deny workers insurance coverage for contraception. We blocked the president from adding a citizenship question to the census. There have been some difficult setbacks too, I'm not going to lie. The president is doing all he can to legalize transgender discrimination. We challenged his ban on transgender people serving in the military. We won a lower court order against the ban, but the Supreme Court lifted the order. We convinced the Obama administration to recognize that federal law protects trans students from discrimination at school, but the new administration rewrote trans students right out of the law. We will continue to fight the president's attacks on the trans community, but I can't say that these reversals aren't devastating. They are. They cause tremendous pain. And though I can't promise success always will be quick, I can guarantee you this. Once we start, we don't stop. We don't stop no matter how long it takes. We don't stop no matter how long the odds. We've pushed for many years to achieve greater accountability around the police abuse and violence disproportionately and lethally felt by people of color. Going back to 1965, right after the Watts riots, we enlisted a vast cadre of volunteer attorneys to ensure that every person arrested, almost 4,000 of them, were represented by counsel. And when the LAPD denied that a history of police misconduct sparked the riots, what did? We opened police malpractice complaint centers in Watts, Pacoima, and elsewhere to document that shameful history and call for civilian oversight of police. There are powerful forces that have long maintained a conspiracy of silence around police misconduct, accusing anyone who calls for reform of being anti-police. We refuse to be bullied into silence. We've joined with grieving families to make it loud and clear. We have the right and the obligation to condemn police brutality. Two years ago, we could not even get a single legislator to put their name on a bill to change the legal standard for when police officers can use deadly force, a standard that hadn't changed since 1872. You heard that right, 1872. That standard allowed police to use deadly force whenever they believed it to be reasonable. We wanted a much stricter standard for deadly force to be used only when absolutely necessary. Last year, we found a brave legislator to sponsor the bill, but it died in committee without even getting put to a vote. At that point, some might have given up, but not us. In daring to fight for the bill and keeping it alive as long as we did, we changed the terms of what was possible. So this year, we reintroduced the bill, and despite the police lobby going all in against it, we got it passed and we got it signed into law. You're welcome. It's been 3 long years since that fateful election night. I've often thought about my mom and what she taught me, and I've thought back to the fear my daughter felt. I can't tell her that the threats we face are any less serious than what she imagined that night. But I do know that she has experienced and learned something valuable. She's been to the last 4 ACLU dinners. She's been to women's marches and immigrants' rights rallies. And she's seen the great comfort, joy, and strength that comes from building community, even if only for a few hours, with people who share the same hopes and dreams for our country. That's why being here tonight feels so good and so right? So let's be clear about our shared hopes and dreams. Our Bill of Rights lays out a vision to protect and promote the dignity of every human being. That vision remains painfully unrealized. We must be inconsolable about that gap between our ideals and reality. Because the injustices that occur daily are sustained by numbness and apathy, we can't become overwhelmed and we can't shut down. Our grief must lead to action. We must come together, we must stick together, and we must fight together for each other. If we are ever to have a true democracy, one where everyone fully belongs, it will be because we refuse to let ourselves be divided. We refuse to turn on our family, friends, and neighbors. We refuse to deny what makes us all human. Despite what you-know-who thinks, America's greatness lies not in some imaginary past, but in a future we can and must make together. Let's do it! Thank you.
Please, let's bring to the stage ACLU Staff Attorney Jordan Wells.
We're fortunate at the ACLU to have clients who inspire the public to demand their rights. Invariably, our clients fight not only for themselves, but also, by example and precedent, for the rights of all of us. 6 months ago, Bakersfield College student Jose Bello was breathing free air thanks to community supporters who had cobbled together $10,000 in bond money to free him from an ICE prison. Jose was free, but he was not in the clear. Having arrived in the United States as a baby, he still faced the prospect of deportation to a country he's never known. And now a father to an infant son, he could have chosen to keep a low profile while defending against his deportation. But that's not who Jose is. He believes that a community overcomes its oppressors by fighting together rather than retreating to their individual corners, and he felt it was important to speak out. On May 15th, he stood before the Kern County Board of Supervisors and delivered a poem criticizing ICE and calling on the public to unite against the current administration's vicious policy of separating immigrant families. ICE's reaction was as swift as it was chilling. Less than 36 hours later, ICE agents came to Jose's home and threw him back in prison. Except now, this time they increased his bond to $50,000, exorbitant even by ICE standards. Jailing an artist who dares to criticize the government strikes at the heart of the First Amendment. If ICE gets away with it, before long they will turn to their other critics, squelching dissent until no one is left to challenge them. With Jose as our client, we are suing to uphold the right against government retaliation for speech. And meanwhile, thanks to the Players Coalition and NFL players Demario Davis and Josh Norman, and much to the chagrin of ICE officers in Bakersfield, Jose was able to post the $50,000 bond. We are lucky to have Jose Bello with us here tonight to deliver his poem, Dear America.
Dear America, by Jose Bello. Dear America, our administration has failed. They passed laws against our people, took away our rights and our freedom, and still expect to be held? Chales. Dear America, you and your administration cause fear through separation. Instead of building trust with our people, do you prefer this racial tension? Oppressed, I live my life in frustration. Private prisons, political funding, mass incarceration, you make the connection. I speak for the victims that pay for this scam. Vietnamese, Jamaican, African, Cambodian, Mexican, Salvadorian, and on and on. Together we stand. We demand our respect. We want our dignity back. Our roots run deep in this country. Now that's a true fact. Dear Americans, you might be asking yourself, what's the whole point of repeating these facts? Well, I'm here to let you know. We want to feel safe, whether we're brown, Asian, or black. We don't want your jobs. We don't want your money. We're here to work hard, pay taxes, and study. The fight has begun. We will never be apart, Chiquito, is what I promised my son. Y'all can try to justify your actions, try to make excuses. The bottom line here is that at the end, the people always triumph and the government loses. Dear America, do not consider this a threat. Our intentions are only to continue making this country great. It's time to begin standing up for what's right. Criminalizing children, separating families, our national security, does this make it all right? No, it doesn't, and it won't. The youth have to stand up. We have to unite with our peers. Let's begin educating our children by speaking wisdom into their ears. Because at the end of the day, I am you, and you are me. Together, we are. Sincerely, those seeds you tried to bury. Thank you.
Let's hear it for Jose.
Soak it all up.
Jose Bello, ladies and gentlemen. And now returning to the stage, Hector Viagra, the Executive Director of the ACLU of Southern California.
Still, I haven't gone anywhere. I'm so pleased that we're honoring Judy Balaban tonight. Whenever it comes time to look for honorees, we tend to look outside ourselves. And it's such a shame because there are so many deserving people right here within the ACLU family. And Judy is certainly one of them. Judy was on the board before I arrived at the ACLU, but I quickly learned about her dedication and her commitment to our work and to our staff. She's fiercely devoted to social justice and civil liberties, and I'm very happy and lucky to have her on our side and not on the other side. I ask you all now to turn to the screens for a brief video celebrating Judy's remarkable life. Judy, thank you for your years of service to the ACLU of Southern California.
To present the Ramona Ripston Liberty, Justice, and Equality Award, please welcome actor, producer, and writer Bob Balaban.
Hello, 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 here I am. Now, A number of you have had the great pleasure of both knowing and working with our first honoree, Judy Balaban. So not to brag, but I can do you one better. I'm Judy's first cousin. So, and I'm very proud of it. And Judy's father, Barney Balaban, was the oldest of 7 Balaban brothers. My father was the youngest. Our grandparents fled a pogrom in Russia in the late 1800s and ended up in Chicago, where they went from owning a grocery store to owning a Nickelodeon to owning many Nickelodeons. And by the time Barney was a young man, he and his brothers had built one of the largest picture palaces in the Midwest. So when Adolph Zukor, the founder of Paramount, asked Barney to be his successor, Paramount's films were produced in LA, but the business side was managed out of New York, so Judy and her family moved east. Now, my father and the other brothers stayed in Chicago, so I never got to know Judy when I was growing up. And I was in my 20s before I finally met her. So I'd moved to California, and she invited me to dinner, and all I knew about Judy Balaban was that Marlon Brando had been the best man at her wedding. Oh, I also knew that she had been a bridesmaid at Princess Grace's wedding, and that she had this amazing red hair that a few lucky people in our family had when they were lucky enough to have hair. But Judy was not at all what I had expected. Her privileged upbringing somehow hadn't blinded her to the needs of other people. She actually had a deep social conscience. You could tell immediately. She cared about injustice, and there was no question that she was going to do something about it. So my dinner with Judy was the beginning of one of the most meaningful relationships in my life, and we became great friends, which is even better than being cousins. And we have worked together on a bunch of causes, and I've seen Judy in action. So here's Judy. Judy's reasonable, she fights when she has to, but she does it so gracefully and diplomatically, you rarely notice that you're losing the argument. Now, Judy has the tactical mind of a 5-star general. She knows how to lead without ever acting like the leader, and she rarely takes credit for the things she does. She would rather give credit to the people who are working with her. So, Judy spearheaded the first entertainment community fundraiser for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And she organized them in all the western states for Dr. King for the March on Washington. She registered black voters in the South. She worked with Senator Jacob Javits to stop a filibuster that would have killed the Civil Rights Act. She served on the Fair Employment Practices Commission, helping to create employment for minority workers. She's a founding member of the Constitutional Rights Foundation. Jerry Brown appointed her to the Contractor State Licensing Board, which is the second largest consumer protection agency in the country. She served for 10 years. And Judy is also a New York Times best-selling author and a contributor to Vanity Fair magazine, by the way. Now, for nearly 40 years, and get up, Judy, and start coming up here if you would. Judy has been a guiding force on the board of the ACLU Foundation of Southern California, helping to shape the future of justice in this country. Now, the Ramona Ripston Liberty, Justice, and Equality Award is the highest honor the ACLU of Southern California can bestow. It is given to the individual whose life best reflects Ramona Ripston's ideals of a just society. Now, where's the award? There it is. So on behalf of the ACLU, don't get here too quickly. Here, I'll be right there. The ACLU of Southern California, I am delighted to present this award to my cousin and my friend, Judy Balaban.
just overwhelmed.
I'm putting it closer to your mouth here.
Thank you, my darling. Bob, thank you so much. I'm so lucky to have you in my life. I'm so lucky to be here tonight, but you know, I feel almost that I'm at a loss for words. Anyone who knows me would tell you that's damn close to impossible, but in any case, I look out a sea of faces of loving, supportive, generous people, and it just warms my heart incredibly. I can't believe that I'm winning an award named for the remarkable Ramona Ripston. Ramona Ripston led this ACLU affiliate with the most inspired guidance for close to 40 years, and I was fortunate enough to be able to spend most of them working alongside of her on a lot of different projects. But she was an amazing person because she wasn't satisfied with what the ACLU was doing in those days. And though she wasn't a lawyer, she had the most vivid imagination about what the law could do to help Americans and people in this country. She expanded the point of view of the ACLU. She transitioned it from the late 20th century into the beginning of the 21st century and expanded what the ACLU addressed beyond traditional civil liberties. She encompassed then the justice and the equality that was also promised by the Constitution. So I'm deeply humbled to win an award in Ramona's name. I was doubly blessed because I not only got to be inspired by her, but we formed a warm and close friendship that lasted for 40 years. I'm very honored tonight to tell you that there's another reason why this night is very special personally to me. Bob mentioned my dad, Barney Balaban. Many of you in this room probably know that he was president of Paramount Pictures, a job he held for almost 30 years. He was very grateful for what America had done for his family. And he spent ages and ages, time and time again, reading more American history than anyone you could consume. In the 40s, he began collecting Americana. And almost everything he got came from a man in Philadelphia. So he was one day visiting this dealer, and he was taken into the cellar, and he was shown this air-conditioned, especially air temperature-controlled vault. And inside of it was a document that had been authenticated as one of the 14 original signed copies of the Bill of Rights. So it seemed that what happened was that they had made 14 copies originally, 13 for the colonies that were going to become states, and one for the Treasury Department. And during the Civil War, one of the southern states had sold its copy. You know, figures, huh? Anyway, one of the southern states had sold its copy to raise money for armaments. And, well, at least it wasn't for a profit. Anyway, and that was the copy that my father saw. Now, he knew at that time that there was only, the Library of Congress, incidentally, was where our documents were housed in those days. They were enshrined there. They've since been moved to the National Archives. But in those days, when you went there, the Library of Congress had an original of the Declaration, an original of the Constitution, but had only a photocopy of the Bill of Rights. So my father, who is, as I said, enormous, and Bob said, enormously grateful for the opportunities awarded to his parents when they moved here as immigrants in the mid-19th century, purchased the Bill of Rights. And on February 21st of 1945, when I was 12 years old, he presented it at the Library of Congress and the people of the United States of America. So I was a natural for the Bill of Rights. I was preconditioned. They sort of, got me all ready and shoved me out there, and there was the Bill of Rights waiting for me to do what I had always wanted to do. I tried to read the Constitution at the same time, and I confess to you, It was pretty heavy sledding for me at 12. I got about a third of the way through, and I gave up. But I went back to the preamble, and I thought, this is what I want to be. I want to be their posterity. They did this amazing thing. They gave this ennobling trust to all of us, that we could do what they did. We could make a more perfect union in our own time for ourselves and our own posterity. And the ACLU seemed to me like the perfect place to be able to do that job. And what a great job it is, because everybody has the same job. You don't do this job alone. You do it with your family, you do it with your friends, you do it with people you never met, that you'll never meet, all over the country. So I came to the ACLU, and I learned very quickly that the ACLU is an amazing bit of exchange. If the phrase wasn't so terrible nowadays, I'd say, since it means something for something, when you get something from the ACLU, you give something back. I won't do the Latin. You know the Latin. But here's how it works. You have an idea in your head. You give something to the ACLU, a resource of yours, whether it's time, energy, blogging, whatever it is you can do, money, whatever you can give. And the ACLU takes your idea, right here, this amorphic thing that's your idea that you talk about with your family or your friends or whatever, and it enlivens it. It activates it. It takes it and it puts legs on it. It walks it into communities. It walks it into hearing rooms. It walks it into courtrooms. And it helps you define the America you want to live in. I think that's a miracle. So what I wanted to tell you only that, other than being a parent and a grandparent, spending 40 years with Ramona Ripston and 40 years working with the ACLU, and this glorious night in the presence of all of you angels of the ACLU is certainly the ultimate and most inestimable privilege of my lifetime.
All right, everyone. Please welcome back to the Bill of Rights dinner a previous recipient of the ACLU's Bill of Rights Award, filmmaker Judd Apatow.
I know it's early in my career to give me a standing ovation, but you could give me more than that. I got myself dressed. I haven't showered in 7 weeks. Just been watching the hearings every day, Googling the history of Ukrainian government. I've completely lost my mind. Right now I have a closer relationship with Politico's Twitter feed than my own children. Glad to be here. I'm a last-minute replacement for Prince Andrew, who got busy. He had some sweating issues. I was so excited to watch my TiVo'd Rachel Maddow from Wednesday, but I had to come out. How are you guys doing? It's hard, right? It's hard. It's stressful. It is. We are all stressed right now. You ever wake up in the middle of the night just screaming, "Devin Nunes!" You don't even know why. My wife cut down on watching the news. She's like, it's just too stressful. And I'm just like, you gotta watch. You gotta watch and see. He's done today. You gotta see what's happening. You gotta hear what Yovanovitch said. It's over. She's like, tell me when it's over. I'm like, we'll tell you. Then the next morning at breakfast, she's like, is it over? I'm like, it's not over yet. Sondland's coming on Wednesday. So she cut down on TV and the news just for stress. And I'm just obsessing, tracking every second of it. And as a result of that, watching so much news, she's actually getting younger by the week. Like, she looks like Millie Bobby Brown all of a sudden. I'm aging like a wartime president. I had to get a cat to deal with the stress. Like, things happen on the news, and I'm just like, let's go do a photo shoot with Honey. It makes me feel better. I'm here to give an award to a true American hero who spoke truth to power in an era where the president has lied 10,000 times. We need truth tellers, right? I don't understand how he didn't get dumped by his wife. He has 43 sexual harassment allegations. His wife has not dumped him, whereas my wife, we watched 2 episodes of The Crown together. She went to the store. I watched 1 without her, and we are in a legal situation right now. We have to teach our kids civics. Our kids don't know civics, right? They do not teach it well enough in school. They need to learn the Constitution, and they don't even teach cursive writing in school anymore. Do you know they don't teach cursive writing? My kid can't read cursive writing. If you show her the Declaration of Independence, she cannot read it. She's like, what language is that? Is that hieroglyphics? What is that? All she can do is print, so everything that she writes looks like a letter from a serial killer to the FBI. You know, it's a weird world where suddenly I believe in all the same things as Scaramucci. Suddenly Scaramucci is my guy? How did this happen? We need heroes. Some heroes, like the whistleblower, have no choice but to remain anonymous due to privacy concerns, but mostly because it's possible the president will immediately tweet their home address. A lot of people have the opportunity to be heroes in the coming weeks. Giuliani has the chance. We know Trump makes fun of him to his face. He should expose Trump's secrets. Don't you think? On purpose this time, on purpose. Don't let opening a Dave & Buster's in Times Square be your only legacy. Melania, we're calling on you to testify. This is your chance. Be free, Melania. No one's worked harder than you to become an American citizen. We all know the terrible price you paid. The bar on being a hero is so low these days. I saw a driver let another car merge in front of him on Sepulveda. Is that a hero? Are you a hero if you retweet George Conway? Seems like being a hero today is just telling the truth when you pay a personal price to do so, like because it'll cost you your Senate seat or your Nike contract, or Putin will release your browser history. It's heroic to speak out against corruption. It's heroic to bring the truth to light, no matter the personal risk. And sometimes it's heroic just to make it through a Senate hearing without crying about your love of beer. Seems like everybody disappoints us. Like, for instance, we found out this week, even Stephen Miller isn't perfect. Who knew? Stephen Miller always looks like he's planning how to get his revenge on Batman. He looks like he just crawled out of an egg before it was ready. He looks like a 9-year-old in a Dracula costume. You know who the real heroes are? The hosts of Fox and Friends. Every day they're out there writing White House policy without getting paid for it, without fact checkers, without even basic understanding of politics. They're not doing it for the money or recognition. They're doing it because otherwise they'd have to go back to hosting child beauty pageants and livestock auctions. Do you know that 6 of Trump's inner circle have now been sent to jail? One more and they tie the Manson family. One more. That's not fair to the Manson family. They killed people, but at least they did not lie about it. So many heroes have risen in the last few years. What Trump didn't realize is that he did make America great. He made it great by uniting us all against him. What we all need to do is to pay tribute to our real heroes so that more people will follow their example. We need to honor the courageous people who stand up to power. Ladies and gentlemen, I am so honored to welcome to the stage the Roger Baldwin Courage Award winner for 2019, Dr. Christine Blasey Ford.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Jed. It's really great when women step up for other women. And it's really great when men show up for women. Thank you, Jed. Thank you, everyone here. I am honored and truly humbled to accept this award. It's hard to feel worthy of Roger Baldwin, the founder of this venerable organization. I'm not a lawyer, but I know the importance of the cases that the ACLU took on under his leadership, defending John Scopes in the famous Tennessee monkey trial, preventing the ban of Ulysses by James Joyce, and protecting the First Amendment rights again and again. His accomplishments over the course of his long career are too many to count. I did one thing. And when I came forward last September, I did not feel courageous. I was simply doing my duty as a citizen, providing information to the Senate that I believed would be relevant to the Supreme Court nomination process. I thought anyone in my position, of course, would do the same thing. I had the example of Anita Hill. I had the values instilled in me by my parents and growing up in Washington, D.C. I had a responsibility to my country, to my fellow citizens, to my students, to my children, to live the values that I tried to teach them. I understood that not everyone would welcome my information, and I was prepared for a variety of outcomes, including being dismissed. I was not prepared for the venom, the persistent attacks, the vilification, the loss of personal privacy, and the collateral damage to my friends and my family. I was not prepared to be physically threatened or to be forced out of our home for over 3 months. I have learned a lot over the past year. I have learned that there is a well-financed attack machine out there ready to flood the internet and the media anytime I raise my head. And I know it's not going to go away. I've also continued to learn that the ethical promise to sexual assault survivors to do no further harm is easily ignored by journalists who selectively abstract meaningless details that are twisted and weaponized against me. And although I underestimated the pain, I also underestimated the love and the support that I have received. The loyalty of individuals who are willing and ready to stand up to the intense public scrutiny on my behalf, waiting for the Senate and the FBI to interview them. Willing to provide corroborating information. My friends are here tonight. Can I please take a moment to thank them? Thank you. I'm thankful that sharing my experience prompted over 200,000 people from across our country and around the world to send messages of support, many handwritten, sharing their own stories of assault and abuse. That's why it means so much to me, not just to be recognized by you tonight, but because I know that you will continue the work of protecting sexual assault survivors and preventing sexual assault. You will continue the work to protect personal privacy and the rights of citizens. My voice was just one voice. You are many. We are many. And it's not just survivors that we have to stand up for. It's all of those who come forward to support our country. Ambassador Jovanovic, all of the men and women who bravely come forward. They come forward to tell the truth and to help our country. They might also be vilified, and they need to hear our voices of support also. Two years ago, Colin Kaepernick at this event said, "We all have an obligation, no matter the risk and regardless of the reward, to stand up for fellow men and women." He quoted Frederick Douglass saying, "If there is no struggle, there is no progress." Thank you for this award. Thank you to you and to the ACLU for your leadership in this struggle. That is how we will make progress. Thank you.
On behalf of the ACLU of Southern California, please welcome director and Emmy Award-winning actor Richard Schiff.
Christine Blasey Ford, you are as amazing in person as you are on C-SPAN. And please know that courage is courageous. Courage is contagious. After that inspiration, I think my job just got a little bit easier. I've been tasked to ask for money. I'm glad that everyone is still seating. I remember when I was a kid growing up in New York City, a couple of kids would stop me in the street and say, "Yo, can I get a quarter?" And I'd say, "I don't have any money." They'd say, "What I find, I keep." And then they'd search me and keep what they found. including my shoe money. I had an uncle who, whenever the check came, would take out and open up his wallet and say, "I only have large money," and slip it back into his pocket. He always got away with it. So if I ask you for money, you might say, "I only have large money," to which I'd say, "We're okay with that." You might say, "I don't have anything on me," to which I'd say, "What I find I keep." You don't want me to do that. Luckily, the ACLU doesn't need a salesman. Luckily for us, the ACLU is a thing we all support to the extent we are capable of giving, and then some. Luckily for us, the ACLU is always there for us, and we are always there for them. My stepfather was and still is a civil rights leader, a Martin Luther King Jr. foot soldier and lawyer. He was an editor and publisher of the Amsterdam News for years. He was an active leader and prominent citizen. As a young man, he was dishonorably discharged from the Army for political affiliations. He sued the United States Army and won an honorable discharge. This as a 21-year-old black man in 1950 America. As you may expect, he was hounded by J. Edgar Hoover's FBI for years. They tried to ruin him. They succeeded, fabricating stories which destroyed his reputation in the community. To survive, he went back to basic lawyering, defending criminal types and scratching out a living. He even defended men who were in renowned disrepute. At a family dinner one night at a restaurant, a small parade of men in stiff collars and pinstripes came over to our table to pay respects, proverbially kissing the ring of a black man with a white wife, 3 white kids, and 4 black kids sitting at that table. That was 50 years ago. I asked him, "How do you reconcile defending men who may have been murderers or rapists or drug dealers or just plain scumbags?" He said something I'll never forget. As soon as due process is violated once, no matter who that is, whether a man or a woman unjustly accused or a scumbag, freedom as we know it is past and gone. It only takes one time. One time. The ACLU has defended Miranda and due process since their inception. Where would we be without the fierce defense of the ACLU? As we are all plainly aware, this president is delegitimizing the courts, the justice system, the State Department, and all agencies pledged to secure our safety, security, and our rights. And for kicks, he has enriched himself immeasurably on the taxpayer's dime. We are in a fight for our lives, for our country, and for our children. There has never been a time of necessity for the ACLU more than today, never. So, I'm going to ask you for money. There's a card on your table. Fill it out and put it in the bowl with the ACLU ribbon on it. But there's always the possibility that I'll come over to your table and say, "Hey, yo, can I get a quarter?" What I find I keep. Keep in mind that in 1963, a quarter to an 8-year-old has inflated just somewhat. So don't make me do that. I'm well schooled. And those who suddenly decided they needed to use the restroom, I know who you are. So give what you can, and then a little bit more. The ACLU needs it, and they appreciate it, and they love you for it, and so do I. Thank you.
I'm jealous, I'm overzealous. When I'm down, I get real down. And when I'm high, I don't come down. I get angry, Baby, believe me, I could love you just like that, and I could leave you just as fast. But you don't judge me, 'cause if you did, baby, I would judge you too. No, you don't judge me, 'cause if you did, baby, I would judge you too. 'Cause I got issues, you got them too. So give them all to me and I'll give mine to you. Bask in the glory of all our problems, 'cause we've got the kind of love it takes to solve them. Yeah, I've got issues. And one of them is how bad I need you. Can't keep my hands to myself, no matter how hard I'm trying to. I want you all to myself. Your metaphorical gin and juice. So come on, give me a taste of what it's like to be next to you. Won't let one drop go to waste. Your metaphorical gin and juice. I got a boy back home in Michigan, and he tastes like Jack when I'm kissing him. And I told him that I never really liked his friends. Now he's gone and he's calling me a bitch again. Got a guy that lives in a garden state, and I told him that we'll make it till we graduate. And I told him that the music will be worth the wait, but he wants me in the kitchen with the dinner plate. And I believe that we're meant to be. Jealousy, 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 get the best of me. Look, I don't mean to frustrate, but I always make the same mistakes. Yeah, always make the same mistakes, 'cause no, is it too late now to say sorry? 'Cause I'm missing more than just your body. No, is it too late now to say sorry? Yeah, I know that I let you down. Is it too late to say I'm sorry now? I'm not just trying to get you back on me, 'cause I'm missing more than just your body. Yeah. Is it too late now to say sorry? Yeah, I know that I let you down. Is it too late to say I'm sorry now? Well, first things first, I'ma say all the words inside my head. I'm fired up and tired of the way that things have been. Oh, woo, the way that things have been. Oh, woo. Well, second things second, don't you tell me what you think that I can be. I'm the one at the sail, I'm the master of my sea. Oh, woo, the master of my sea. Oh, woo. I was broken from a young age, taking my soak into the masses, writing my poems for the few that look at me, took at me, shook at me, feeling me, singing from heartache, from the pain, taking my message from the veins, speaking my lesson from the brain, seeing the beauty through the pain. Oh no, see you walking around like it's a funeral. Not so serious, girl, why those feet cold? We just getting started, don't you tiptoe, tiptoe, no. Waste time with a masterpiece, so waste time with a masterpiece. You should be wrong with me, you should be wrong with me. You're a real life fantasy, you're a real life fantasy. But you're moving so carefully, and let's start living dangerously. Talk to me, baby. I'm going mad for this sweet, sweet craving. Oh, let's lose our minds and go fucking crazy. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Keep on hoping we'll eat cake by the ocean. Walk for me, baby. Now be Diddy, you'll be Naomi. No, no. Let's lose our minds and go fucking crazy. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Keep on hoping we'll eat cake by the ocean. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, cake by the ocean.
Well then, to continue what I think we can all agree is a memorable evening for the ACLU of Southern California, please welcome platinum-selling recording artist, actor, and producer Selena Gomez.
First, I want to say thank you so much to Justin Tranter for inviting me to be here. I mean, I would do anything for him, but he has always continued to teach me and to show me things beyond creativity, things that are important, that matter to him, and has opened my eyes up immensely. That wasn't part of my speech, but if you've ever written a song before, I can tell you that it's a very vulnerable and intimate experience. That can be quite intimidating. You know, you're not quite sure if you have chemistry with other people that you're writing with, or even trusting someone with your story, which can be very personal. I feel so fortunate to know and work with the lovely, amazing, strong, compassionate Justin Tranter. From the moment you met Justin, you feel welcomed, you feel special, you feel seen, and you feel heard. Having worked with Justin for so many years, I'm lucky to have experienced this firsthand. Justin has pushed me not only as an artist and a songwriter, but also as a human being. And for that, I will be extremely grateful for the rest of my life. There is so much to love about Justin, but what I truly love the most is their conviction and passion to be a voice for the communities that need it. Whether it's demanding action on common sense gun control or fighting against discrimination of queer people, Justin never gives up. And he will never, ever take no as an answer. I know that. These are the qualities of change makers throughout history, and he's contributing to changing the world, not just his success with music and what he's done, but for his community, and he's inspired me so much. This includes, by the way, all the most amazing people in this room tonight. With all the darkness in the world, Justin is an undeniable light that has brought me and a lot of other people hope. I'm inspired by their unapologetic approach to life. Justin does as they damn well please, and that I respect. It is truly my honor to present the 2019 Bill of Rights Award of the ACLU of Southern California to my dear, dear friend and soulmate, Justin Tranter.
Hello! How the fuck are you? This is an honor like none other. Edie, that performance was unfucking believable. To hear all those songs in one moment is just life-changing. Selena, I love being your friend. I love making music with you. And I really love cheering you on as you have stepped into your activism this year. It is unbelievable. If you haven't watched the series Undocumented on Netflix, please do. It's shocking. The ACLU. The ACLU Bill of Rights Award. This is fucking nuts. This is way... I am not worthy at all. The lifelong activists that were on the stage before me make me feel very small in a good way, because I feel very inspired to continue this for another however fucking long I live. But no, this award, coming from the family that I come from, a bunch of advocates and loudmouths, this award means way more to me than the Grammy and Golden Globe that I lost. But truly, ever since I was a teenager, combining art and activism is what has brought me the most joy. Fundraising brings me joy. Opening doors for marginalized people brings me joy. And speaking out, even when it's scary as hell, it still brings me joy. So to get this award and be recognized for what makes me fucking joyful makes me very, very, very grateful. Because I believe that in these very dark times, in these divisive times, that simply being joyful is an act of resistance. As a queer, gender non-conforming person, that's right, bitches, get used to huh? Do you like my outfit, by the way? Okay. As a queer, Jesus Christ. As a queer, gender non-conforming person, waking up to this administration attacking my community and many other marginalized communities at every turn has not made the last few years easy. They can try and take my rights, but they can't take my fucking joy. That doesn't mean I'm gonna stop fighting. That just means I'm gonna do it with a big, gay smile on my face. So with that said, instead of spending the rest of this time thanking all of the unbelievable people in my life who make not only my creative work, but also my activist work possible, Katie Vinton, main shout out for this bitch right here, making everyone in our lives donate money like every other week. We're like, this email isn't a donation, but it actually is. But so instead of going through all that, I would like to focus on some more joy. I would like to celebrate some unsung folks who demonstrated powerful, joy-inducing acts of resistance this year. Are you okay with that? I'd like to also focus on local activists and local work. So to start with that, and again, if I fuck up these names or anything, please forgive me. I'll apologize to you personally afterwards. Corey Jackson. Corey runs Sigma Beta Psi, which mentors over 200 boys of color, and he was a critical partner in the ACLU's lawsuit against Riverside to end a program that was criminalizing 11 to 17-year-olds for adolescent misbehavior or for simply needing emotional or educational support. So on the count of 3, let's get joyful and say thank you, Corey. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, Corey! Marsha Doss and Amy Monroe, powerful student leaders who spoke truth to power in the Students Not Suspects campaign to hold LAUSD officials accountable to students by ending discriminatory student searches. On the count of 3, let's say thank you, Marsha and Amy. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, Marsha and Amy. This is fabulous. I just almost tripped on my skirt. That would have been really chic. LAUSD board member Monica Garcia, the LA school board leader who responded to community demands and championed the end of random searches of students in LAUSD. On the count of 3, let's say thank you, Monica. 1, 2, 3. Loretta Whitson from California Association of School Counselors. Loretta is helping to lead the ACLU's advocacy to increase mental health support in schools. On the count of 3, let's say thank you, Loretta. 1, 2, 3. Pastor Eddie Anderson, the pastor from McCarty Memorial Church who works at LA Voice, has been leading outreach for the ACLU's LA Coalition for DA Justice and Accountability, which works to educate people about the powers of a DA and the importance of voting for a DA that reflects their values. On the count of 3, let's say thank you, Pastor Eddie. 1, 2, 3. the families affected by police violence, who bravely led the work to pass the Police Use of Force Bill. In the face of injustice, they turned their tragedy into power to effect change, honor their loved ones, and protect our communities. Allies worked in solidarity with these families as they raised awareness about the issue, built networks, made phone calls, collected letters of support, held vigils, met with elected representatives, and made multiple trips to our state's capital to testify before the legislature. And then there were many, many volunteers who worked to get the message out, made phone calls, helped with petitions, and some of them are here tonight. So on the count of 3, let's say thank you. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. During these trying times, I urge you all to celebrate the victories that we are having. Because of, yes. Because of the ACLU, we have the right to fight back. Because of the ACLU, we have the right to speak up. And because of the ACLU, we have the right to be fucking joyful. Thank you.
And now, everyone, introducing the ACLU of Southern California's Director of Advocacy and Legal Director, Melissa Goodman.
Hello. Hi. Woo. All right, so I have the fun job tonight. I get to tell you about some of our exciting victories during this far, far too busy year. We took actions against city councils, boards of supervisors, the police, sheriffs, school boards, hospitals, a giant university, corporations, and of course, the federal government. Woo! We've sued, we've lobbied, we've written new laws, we've organized, we've trained and built networks of activist leaders. We've helped build strong movements and coalitions, all in the service of creating the kind of communities, state, and nation we actually want to live in. Let's start with a federal agency quietly operating in an ominous-looking building in Orange County. Inside, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, ICE, ran its massive deportation operation called Secure Communities. ICE agents sitting at computers 24/7 using databases to send arrest demands for immigrants across the country. No matter that its databases were woefully out of date and full of errors. No matter that an untold number of people in the databases were citizens. No matter that the operation was clearly unconstitutional. Millions of people were still targeted at the push of a button and deported based on faulty database information alone. But in September, after a 6-year battle, we won and shut the operation down. The White House immediately held a news briefing to rail against the ruling, so we knew we'd done some good. We've also taken on huge entities engaged in discrimination. Dignity Health. It's the largest hospital chain in California. But if you're seeking health care that doesn't have the Catholic Church's stamp of approval, you can be refused service and care. Evan Minton was scheduled to have a hysterectomy at a Dignity Health hospital until just 2 days before the scheduled procedure. Evan shared with a nurse that he was transgender. They quickly canceled the surgery under the guise of religious freedom. We sued and this year won a landmark victory. An appeals court ruled that a hospital cannot refuse medical services to a person just because they're transgender. And at the same time this was happening, Dignity was quietly negotiating a contract with the UC system to provide medical services to students. We were shocked. Our public university system was welcoming a hospital chain that openly refuses reproductive health care and turns away transgender people in 2019 in California. Along with many others, we protested, testified, and organized a pressure campaign, and our efforts worked. In May, the UC system gave up and broke off talks with the hospital chain. Meanwhile, as you heard a little bit from Justin, in Riverside County, we sued to to stop a program that was targeting Black and brown students for typical adolescent behaviors, like talking back to teachers or being late to class. Instead of detention, students were basically coerced into what was essentially criminal probation, complete with surprise searches, unannounced home visits, and limits on who students could associate with. Through a settlement this year, we created a model for juvenile programs nationwide and got Riverside to invest $7 million for youth, for programs that actually help, not criminalize young people. Finally, I want to share a huge victory that took a decade. For years, we and partners like Reform LA Jails campaigned to tear down the dangerous, dungeon-like Men's Central Jail in downtown LA. This year, the County Board of Supervisors finally agreed that it should come down, but in its place wanted to build a so-called mental health jail with more services. It might sound good on paper, but jails are still jails. And jails don't make anyone, especially people with mental health conditions, well. The board committed millions to this project, even though the community and experts were screaming that it was a massive mistake and that LA should invest in community-based programs instead. Our coalition's pressure was so strong that in August, the board finally relented and voted to drop the replacement jail. So we're generally pretty impatient people here at the ACLU SoCal. We want justice and we want solutions and we want them now. But we're also in it for the long game to make sure our victories are real and that they stay won. So I hope next year you invite me back. I get to stand here and tell you about some victories in some big things that are heating up for which we'll need your support. I hope to be able to tell you we've succeeded in checking our LA sheriff and reining in his abusive and lawless behavior. I also hope to tell you that we helped educate voters on why they need reform-minded district attorneys. That we've succeeded to stop gender, pregnancy, and breastfeeding discrimination for workers at the Long Beach docks, Navy contractors in Barstow, and women in the OC Fire Department. That we've stopped LA's shameful debt collection practice of towing homeless people's cars without due process. And I hope I can tell you how we've continued to stop discriminatory and inhumane immigration policies and kept California a safe and welcoming place for everyone. We'll continue to work hard to make California the model for the nation, but we also lend our hand to help our sister affiliates fighting big battles, and we chip in on national work to make a country we can one day be proud of again. To that end, I am thrilled to introduce you to our wonderful colleague, Andrea Young, the Executive Director of the ACLU of Georgia.
Thank you, Melissa. I'm so grateful to be here with you today. I thank my wonderful colleague Hector and his team for their support of the ACLU of Georgia as we fight to protect reproductive justice and defend against the assault on Roe v. Wade. What happens in Georgia matters to the entire country. When I was 9 years old, I marched in Selma with my dad and Martin Luther King Jr. The Voting Rights Act came from that movement, and when I was a teenager, my dad, Andrew Young, could run for Congress in Georgia because of the Voting Rights Act. During that campaign, we started our mornings early, 6 a.m. in the morning, shaking hands at bus stops, where Black women in uniforms changed buses to get on the bus that would take them from their own neighborhood to the white side of town to work. They couldn't be late to work without losing pay or even the job itself. But thanks to the Voting Rights Act and their efforts, those women helped my dad become the first African American from the Deep South elected to Congress since the Reconstruction era. So today, when I think about access to the ballot, I think about those women. What is for them a fair chance to vote? Every day in Georgia at the ACLU, we are fighting for those women and the most vulnerable members of our communities. We fight voter suppression in all its forms. The closing of polls, the canceling of voter registration, making voter registration forms confusing, chaos and long lines at the polls, acts of omission and commission that suppress the vote of the young, the low-income, or time card-punching voters. We at the ACLU are reopening polls, challenging voter cancellations, monitoring county boards of elections. Because what happens to those ladies on the bus when their vote is suppressed? They end up with a governor and a state house that does not represent the people of Georgia. And we get laws like the abortion ban that was signed into law in May, passed by a legislature that does not represent the people. A law signed by a governor who spent the last 8 years pushing people off the voter rolls. When low-income working women don't have a fair chance to vote, elected officials take away their right to personal autonomy, take away their right to choose. These hardworking women, on top of all their burdens, all their responsibilities, despite all the contributions they make to our community, politicians are telling them what to do with their bodies and interfering with their very personal and private decisions. That's why I call the politicians who promoted the abortion ban law plantation patriarchs. We told the governor, if you sign that abortion ban into law, we will see you in court. And that is what we did. And on October 1, the federal district court agreed with us that Georgia's law violated the standard in Roe v. Wade and granted our request for a preliminary injunction. The court blocked the Georgia abortion law from taking into effect. The ACLU has brought 7 of these challenges across the South and Midwest, and we have prevailed every single time. And in Georgia, in November 2020, we will remember who stood with us and who voted against us. Because ultimately in Georgia, we have an electoral solution. That's why we said to the film industry, don't boycott. We appreciate the moral and financial support, especially the financial support. But we need union labor in Georgia. We need employers who embrace a diverse workforce. We need employers who value creativity and thinking outside the box. And we are so grateful to the film production companies who said, we will help you protect the right to choose in Georgia. And we're grateful to the team at the ACLU of Southern California who made sure we were able to have those conversations. We will win this. We will widen the space in Georgia so that all people can thrive. Georgia can have a legislature that actually reflects the views, the values, and the principles of the Georgia public. We and our partners will educate voters in the state house districts that can be won by pro-choice candidates. 16 new pro-choice house seats means a pro-choice progressive majority in the Georgia House. In the meantime, the ACLU will be relentless against voter suppression, and we will fight in the courts until Georgia's abortion ban law is completely overturned. So no Georgia citizen is denied their sacred right to vote, and no elected official ever succeeds in taking away the right to choose. Thank you.
And now, everyone, to make our next presentation, please welcome actor, producer, and activist Regina Hall.
Paul, I thought you were going to scream for me. No, my table. There he is. Thank you so much. This has been such an incredible night. Thank you to the ACLU of Southern California for inviting me. This has been an incredible evening. To everyone who was honored tonight, I am humbled by all the work that you have all done. It brings me so much pleasure to be in this room with such good-looking, Jason, well-dressed, like-minded people. It's wonderful to hear all of your opinions. You know, I love good opinions. Everyone does. I used to enjoy differences of opinions, but not so much these days. But it's an honor to be here for the ACLU. I don't know if you're like me, but you watch the news, you hear stories on the news about abuse, about terrible injustices, things that happen. The stories are outrageous and they hook you in, and no matter what you hear, according to the ACLU, or the ACLU just filed a suit, or here with us is an ACLU attorney. So thank you for being on it all the time. There is no they in ACLU. The ACLU is a union. It's in the name. The ACLU is us, everyone in this room tonight and all the members beyond. The ACLU membership has tripled in recent years. More members than ever before, but you know, they still need us. Actually, they need us more. Which brings me to my task at hand tonight, which is to collect money. No, it's not. My task is, we just saw an incredible video. So I'll start you off with this. I was and still remain a huge, huge, gigantic Don Cheadle fan. I have always been awed by his work. I met him at an event a few years ago. I think when we were what? Was it 18? About 7 years ago now, right, Don? And that shouldn't be that funny. But Don was leaving, and he said, I think he said something like, I want to work with you. And, you know, people always say that in Hollywood, but I want to thank you for putting a black woman on Wall Street. You know, when I first walked on set with Don, it's literally like getting a master class in acting. The first day he did a scene, and I was like, oh, shit. I'm scared. It was effortless because he's a craftsman. You engage with him as a person, and you meet a man, you meet an artist, and a citizen of the world. The respect that Don brings to his acting, we've seen it, you know, it's the same respect he brings to the world. He is mindful, generous, not to just his fellow actors, but to our entire crew. He thanks the crew, he thanks our background for being patient. He's passionate, he's convicted. These are traits that are genuine and very essential to Don, and this is how he relates to the world. There's not a person he does not value. Although he said some pretty mean stuff to me, but that's not about that tonight. And his compassion is global because he is smart, he thinks big. His platform extends to benefit all of humanity. And what's so interesting about Don is that he's so quiet about it. He is surprisingly humble and shy, and I often notice, like, well, I don't think he knows that he's Don Cheadle. I don't know if he knows. Like, do you know that you're Don Cheadle? I don't think he does. But then you learn the extent of his good deeds. When you know this about Don, it comes as no surprise that he made Hotel Rwanda. Which I loved. Congratulations to Sophie Okinato, who got the part. Always excited for people who get parts. But he got involved in the Sudan to pay witness firsthand. Wearing that T-shirt on Saturday Night Live, as you all saw, protect trans kids, so incredible, but also incredibly Don. Not particularly loud, but extremely impactful, as he always is. Don introduced me to the Solutions Project, an effort to tackle climate change by making clean, renewable energy a reality. And this is the thing, Don balances his impact with his quiet influence. He takes on a cause and he makes sure people notice, even though he's being quietly Don Cheadle. He didn't even tell anybody on set. I would have been bragging. I would have been like, y'all know the ACLU's honoring me, right? Don didn't tell anyone. You know? I'd have had a T-shirt that said that. But not Don. He's always quiet and cool. The love that Don brings to the world is a part of him, but it's also very connected to his long-lasting and beautiful partnership with his wife, Bridget. So, Bridget, thank you for sending him to work happy every day and loved. The love that he has for his family is tremendous to him. I'm gonna tell something that I shouldn't, but they still send little X's and O's to each other. Isn't that nice? Y'all don't wanna know the texts I get from my ex. Hence X. So let us all, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the recipient of the ACLU Bill of Rights Award with that same amount of love that he gives, my colleague, my friend, Mr. Don Cheadle.
Oh, thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Regina. I feel like, not the president now, but I feel, with the teleprompters, you always try to act like you're not reading. I always hated that. I was just read the speech, but now I'm gonna do it. So, thank you, Regina. Thank you, ACLU of Southern California, for this amazing recognition. I'm very humbled to be here. How grateful are we for the ACLU? Has it ever been more urgent to have the good work of the ACLU in our world? Yeah, we can clap again. Living in a time of abject gaslighting being passed off as reality, bullies being rewarded, an actual true crisis at our border, a rash of other injustices. Where would we be without organizations like the ACLU, championing the cause of the disenfranchised, offering wisdom, counsel, and agency to the underserved, the overlooked, the underrepresented? You are here to help create, maintain, and reinforce the bulwark against tyranny. The ACLU needs to never go away. When I was 8 years old, I was very cute. This doesn't have anything to do with the story. I just wanted to let you guys know that. Probably already guessed that. I digress. When I was in school and stood for the Pledge of Allegiance with my hand over my heart, I always said when it came to that part, with liberty and justice for some. Now, I'm my parents' child. My parents who were educated and aware and very vocal at the dinner table when the news came on. I don't know any of you out there who have black parents. They talk to the TV. Who remembers eating together as a family? Special. Who remembers eating in front of the TV? Man, we got some old people in here. Okay, anyway, I would always hear my parents speak up when they witnessed an injustice or a clear example of someone who had been disenfranchised, someone marginalized, someone who's getting the short end of the stick. Whether or not it was intentional or not, it put a clear idea about right and wrong in front of me. It colored how I saw life around me, who was in the safety zones, who wasn't, who was protected, who had to fend for themselves, who had a voice, who didn't. So it was natural for me to say with liberty and justice for some. It was what I was very soberly aware of every day. But even in that atmosphere, the house of a budding blacktivist, that's copywritten, don't take that. That's my next t-shirt. I don't want to see anybody out there with it before I get it made. When I shared with my father my version of the Pledge of Allegiance, he nodded, was understanding. Then he quietly said, sometimes you express what you hope for the world rather than as the way it is. Speak for what you will work for. And that surprised me. I didn't really understand it at the time, but I really understand it now. Being both realistic and aspirational are not mutually exclusive. Piggybacking on you, Justin, talking about joy. Both are necessary. But justice only comes into existence through deeds. I was always told by my mother and father that if I started unjust fights, that was my ass. But I better finish every one of them that I found myself to be in justifiably. You fight the good fight. That had their full support. Stand up, say something, get involved. However, as it happens, I was also that 8-year-old kid who was practicing my signature because my autograph was going to mean something, and I thought that at 8 years old. Yeah, that was me. That was me. I had big plans. And when I realized those dreams and ambitions with hard work, good fortune, good people beside me, I was still one to see the world clearly and to speak out when I could. It was just going to be a little louder now. And that early lesson took, it didn't die. Many of the people I work with also talk about what it's like to live in the world with a spotlight. Paparazzi pursue you, cameras notice, you're living in the light. The flip side is it gives you a certain vantage point. You travel, you talk to people, you see the world. You see what's happening everywhere. There's human suffering, poverty, intolerance, inequity, injustice. People living in jeopardy and despair and darkness. We talk about how it is that sometimes we can't get out of the light and they can't get in the light. Right? So what's our good fight? How can we use what we have and who we are to add our light to the sum of light? The first thing to do is to listen to the answers when you ask that question. As Too Short famously said, I bet you didn't think you were going to hear a Too Short quote tonight. But as Too Short famously said, get in where you fit in. And if you're in my position, it turns out you fit into a lot of places. Whether it's the Sudan, traveling with congressmen and women to draw attention to a genocide happening in real time, or in Texas with climate scientist Catherine Hayhoe, talking with residents of Plainview who had to figure out where their next paycheck was going to come from because the meatpacking plant that provided all of their employment had closed because the green belt had moved north. Or stumping for candidates across the country whose platforms are centered on providing greater opportunities for the many rather than the few. This celebrity, if you will, coupled with homegrown, baked-in mandate to speak up, show up, fight the good fight. It affords me quite a lot of fitting in. So you keep getting involved, you keep showing up, keep supporting, keep taking that attention, that spotlight, and turning it towards those on the front lines who have dedicated their time and energy, their lives, to promoting liberty and justice for all. Organizations like the ACLU. And here I have to thank Bridget, my wife, for supporting me with love and time and keeping me grounded and humble with the work, my kids, the family, the career, the causes. I'm going to continue to need it because the work is far from over. Climate change, reproductive rights, police abuse, protection for our LGBTQI community, affordable housing, homeless population, public education. Here comes the Equal Rights Amendment again. We got to do that again? Here comes the election. God in her heaven, the election. And they are all deserving of time and focus and energy and fight. Those of you in attendance tonight who are not officially affiliated with the ACLU, or perhaps only cursorily so, I would have you ask yourselves the same question. Where do I fit in? What do I have to offer toward the good fight? Chances are it's more than you've probably considered. Where are your spheres of influence? Is it in your church, work, school, your family? Who can you throw in with? These issues require a robust and repetitive frontal assault from an army of infitters and upstanders dedicated to seeking justice. They require people with passion, intelligence, and insight to continue to be innovative and forward-thinking. They require us to reach toward each other again and again when the good fight gets exhausting and we just want to quit and give up, which is why we are so fortunate to have the ACLU. The ACLU gives us the power to stand collectively and speak. The ACLU says that's not good enough, over and over. That's not good enough. What we aspire toward, what we have been promised is liberty and justice for all. So I want to thank you all, each and every one of you, for fighting the good fight. I thank you for this honor, and I thank the ACLU. Thank you.
Fantastic. Please welcome to the stage the co-chairs of the Bill of Rights Dinner Committee, Nichelle Carr and Stacy Horth-Newbert.
Hi, I'm Nichelle.
And I'm Stacy.
What an inspiring evening. You heard from some wonderfully courageous advocates tonight.
Makes you want to go out and follow their example, right? Knock on some doors, or maybe break out your checkbook.
You have heard about the threats ahead of us: reproductive freedom, police accountability, immigration, trans rights, voting rights, and so many others. But justice costs money. Freedom ain't free, folks.
Please take a stand. Support justice by giving as generously as you can. Put your completed donation cards in the boxes, glass boxes on your tables with the blue ACLU ribbon on them.
We promise that your gift will make a difference. We are so grateful that you chose to spend your Sunday evening with us, supporting and advancing the mission of the ACLU of Southern California.
Now, please skip the long line that you'll find at the valet and join us for a second bonus round of desserts in the back room. We hope to see you next year at the Bill of Rights dinner. Good night.
Good night.
Everyone out there, thank you so much for being here this evening on a memorable evening. Thank you to the award presenters, the recipients, all of their support people, and all of the people who brought the Bill of Rights dinner together. See you next year. This is Nat Segalov.